Hello everyone, Mike Rempel from Another Set of Eyes with today's Excel Bytes blog post. Today we're going to take a look at how to find the minimum quantity of a number within a range. Recently I did a post on the mode function, and I had this table of data here, and the question was, what is the most common number within that range? And the result, or the way to achieve that, is using the mode.sngl function. And you can see here, by running that function on this data range, the result is 3. And to just verify that, I have the 5 numbers that I know are in this range, and I just did a COUNTIF function of them and determined that there are 44 number 1s, 42 number 2s, etc. The most popular is 51 number 3s, 38 number 4s, and then the least common is 35 number 5s. So as you can see, the mode.sngl function does work. It did produce the number 3 because number 3 is the most popular within this range. A viewer of my post asked the question, is there a way to find the least popular within Excel? And it turns out there's no specific single formula to do that. So did a little research and consulted with several other Excel experts who provided some suggestions, and although there were a few different possibilities, I settled on this formula here as being the one that I'm going to use in the example today to provide you with the formula to find the least popular number or value within a range of data. So we're going to walk through this formula just so I can show you how it works. Now you can see we're using a couple different functions here, the COUNTIF function, the min function, and the max function. And also notice in the COUNTIF, you can see that if we take a look at how COUNTIF works, COUNTIF will count the number of cells within a range that meet a given condition. If I tab that, you can see there's the range and the criteria. And normally you have a range of data, and the criteria is usually a single criteria, but if you notice in our formula, the range and the criteria are both the full range of data. Because of that, because we're comparing two different ranges, that's going to make this an array formula. And if you notice that this formula has the curly brackets around it because it's an array formula, and in order to activate an array formula, you don't hit enter, but you have to hit Control Shift and enter, and that's what adds those curly brackets around there. You cannot manually enter those brackets. The only way to do it so Excel will work is hitting Control Shift and enter. So we're going to walk through this formula and I'll explain how it works and the logic behind it in case you ever want to use it for a function that you may need. So we're going to use the evaluate formula function that's found in the formulas tab here. I click on the cell with that formula in it, and I'm going to click evaluate formula. Now you can see the first thing that Excel wants to do is evaluate the COUNTIF formula, comparing that range of data to the criteria, which also is the range of data. When I hit evaluate, notice it creates this long table in essence of numbers, 42, 35, 38, 44, etc. What in essence it's doing is it's gone through each one of these numbers here and said, okay, how many 2s are there in this whole range? Well, there's 42. How many 5s? There's 35. How many 4s? There's 38, etc. Excuse me. So Excel has basically taken this range and created this table from it, which is the quantity of each number in that position within that range. So the next step then Excel wants to do in the evaluate formula, once it's done that, is do the same with this COUNTIF formula. So if I hit that evaluate and go down and check it, it's now done the same thing here. It's saying now what is the minimum, because it's the minimum of the COUNTIF of 42, 35, etc. So the next step will be to evaluate that, and it's determined that the minimum is 35. So now the next step that Excel is going to perform is it's created through this COUNTIF formula this range of numbers, which is the quantity of each one of those in that position within the range, and comparing it to the minimum of that, which we've determined is 35. That's what Excel has done with their determined from the minimum of the COUNTIF numbers. So now it's going to take all that and say, are you equal to 35? And that's going to create, in essence, this table. Every place that there's a 35, we're going to get a true. A 35 here, we're going to get a true. So everywhere else, there's going to be a false. So we've determined the quantity of each number with this COUNTIF formula. We've determined the minimum of that with this one, and then done a comparison of this equaling that 35 and coming up with basically a series of trues and falses. Now, if you remember in Excel, a false is 0 and a true is 1. So what's the next step it's going to do is then take that series of true and falses and multiply it times the range itself, which are these numbers here. And when you multiply a 2 times a false, you get a 0. If you multiply a 5 times a true, you get a 5. So the max function here, or the comparison of the result of this COUNTIF equals min-COUNTIF, which is the range of data, multiplied, or which is the trues and falses, multiplied times that range of data, gives us a series of zeros where there was a false, or fives where there was a true. The next step is taking what's the max of 0 or 5. The result of that is 5. And that's given us our answer of what number is the least popular within that data range. So we're just going to walk through the formula one more time so you can see the process here. I'm going to hit Evaluate Formula. Again, the first step it's going to do in evaluating that COUNTIF is to create that series of quantities for each cell in it. The next, it's going to do the same thing for that COUNTIF formula, and it's created that list. And then you notice since that's underlined, it's going to find the minimum of all that. So if I hit Evaluate again, it found that that minimum is 35, and so it's going to compare all those numbers to 35, and that's going to be a series of trues and falses. And then that will compare, when you multiply that trues and falses times those numbers, you get a series of zeros and fives. And then the max of zeros and fives is going to give us the number 5. And that's how you can find the least popular quantity of a number within a data range. And here's your formula to do that. So that was a little bit complicated. I hope you followed it and I hope you understood it. You may need to watch this a couple times just to get your head around it. I'll put up the file in a link in this, so if you can take it and follow along, that might be helpful. I hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to see more, please feel free to go to my website, excel-bytes.com, and subscribe to my blog. Happy excelling!